I moved to the UK in 2009 with a lot of hope, and I had limited amount of money in my pocket. I had to make it work. There was no other choice. So I thought the corporate career can be the ultimate goal. From one day to another, I decided I packed my suitcase, I leave corporate, and I moved to the UK. And then I reached burnout, and then I quit. There are certain variables that you will never be able to change, but there are certain variables that you can definitely change. I'm a very happy person. I'm very content where I am. I am proud of what I achieved, and I really feel that I have an amazing gift that I can inspire others. So why not make this into good use? If I can do it, so can you.
Hi, Rita, and welcome to this episode 12 of Unstoppable Women, where I sit down with women like yourselves and hear about the stories of change that you have gone through and what the lessons are that you've learned for today and how they're relatable to others. And it's really fantastic meeting you. You've got a really fascinating
Thank you.
story. And it's all about your migration and movement through the world and some of those real life-changing moments and what that now means to you. You are Rita Cox and you are the founder of the Be Empowered method. And this is all about how you can help to support women to really live the most fulfilling and empowering life, brought to you by all of your experience over the last 17, 18 years. So to get us started, why don't you tell the listeners and introduce yourself? Who is Rita Cox?
First of all, thank you so much, Julie, for this amazing opportunity. And also thank you so much for creating such a powerhouse women from real life, creating this unstoppable movement of bringing really inspiring women together. So thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be here and having this conversation with you. And also thank you so much for the amazing introduction. I think you said quite a lot, but yes, I'm Rita Cox, and I founded the Be Empowered method, which gave me so much throughout the past years that I felt a calling to bring it together and actually just creating something more tangible with it. I'm originally from Hungary, and I moved to the UK in 2009 with a lot of hope and a massive suitcase. and and that later on turned into a husband and a kid. And some amazing memories. But ultimately, I feel myself being as a big advocate of like creating the change that you want to see. Coming from a long corporate background, I worked in corporate for 13 years within the big names like Philips, GSK, Unilever, to name a few. And then I reached burnout, and then I quit, and which wasn't that easy. But it wasn't this fast, but I ultimately left corporate to teach yoga. And after teaching yoga, I realized I need something else. So I created like all sorts of things that relates to yoga and self-development. And when I went on this self-development journey, I absolutely opened doors that I haven't known it's there. And it was fantastic. So, and then I pivoted again and pivoted again. But ultimately, I arrived to the woman who I am today after a few changes in my life.
And that's why I think your story is so beautiful amongst this series, because it is the true story of the ups and downs, the twists and turns that we go through that form the identity of who we are now. And you are someone that lives such a rich life. You work in film now, you have a child, you're a mum, but you've branched out into yoga, something I love and wish I could do so much more of. I'm spending too much time running at the minute. I've got the marathon in 5 weeks and I desperately need more yoga in my life. So I think you're a really good influence for me right now. But why don't you take us back then? Because I think when we first talked about your story, 2009 seemed to be like a really pivotal moment where things started to change in your life. Take us back just a little bit before and set the scene. What was going on for you there? Who were you? What was life like before 2009?
Oh my God. It's been so much going on, or it was so much going on. I think we had a blast of a young adulthood back then. I was living in Hungary. We had amazing time with our mates, and we lived quite a careless life, I think. But what for me was the view of like being in a 9 to 5, doing the corporate ladder and trying to aim for something that I thought I wanted to be like high up on that corporate ladder. And then once I get there, I will be happy and everything's going to be amazing. And, I arrived to Nirvana basically.
Mm.
And then because I didn't have a lot of support from home, I had to make a lot of decisions on my own. And then I had to make sure that I'm looked after. So I thought the corporate career can be the ultimate goal. So that's what I set myself up for. And then going through quite a painful breakup, it made me realize that actually I need a complete change. So I basically from one day to another, I decided I pack my suitcase, I leave corporate and I moved to the UK. And basically I arrived, this is a fun story though. I arrived on Guy Fawkes night, which is the 5th of November. And I was literally landing in the UK, I pulling my suitcase and my friend just said, just drop your suitcase there, we're going to go out. So that's how we started. Thursday, people gathering I don't think it was a council flat sort of thing, but it was like a housing estate
Yeah.
back then.
Yep.
And people were gathering, food was shared, and like fireworks and everything. I was like, this is
Oh.
amazing. I'm loving it.
I mean, firstly, why the UK? Why did that appeal to you? You obviously have friends here.
Well, I had one friend who I
Right.
can class her as a rock
Yeah.
in my life. I think even though we live a completely separate style of life, she's been there for me through thick and thin. And she was just one of the people who I could rely on. And I think I was obviously afraid of doing such a move. I had limited amount of money in my pocket. I had to make it work. There was no other choice. Like I either make it or there's no other way. Like in my head, I didn't even have a choice of like, oh, I could go back. No, I can't go back because once I left, that's it. There's no go back. And we agreed that, okay, let's just cover the first few months and then we figure it out. So she was the kind of person who helped me just, okay, let's get a bank account, let's get a flat share, let's get, everything sorted that sets you up. And then from then, I basically carved my own jobs and work and everything. We just kind of shared ideas. And that's why it was the UK.
Wow. And I mean, how amazing you had that person there
100%.
to support you.
100%.
And we all need one of those people, don't we, in our lives that have our back and have the suggestions and ideas for us at those tough moments.
Absolutely.
So you bought that ticket, you flew over to the UK. Was that to London?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't even have any other. I didn't even know that other towns are a possibility. I was so oblivion. I think that's the right way. I was so like, yeah, London. Where else would you
amazing. And so what was you limited knowledge of the rest of the UK. Was your friend Hungarian? That's how you knew her?
Yes.
And how was your English at the time? Good?
It was really good. It was really good
right.
because I worked for Philips in Hungary and English was the main language within the company. Yeah. We had trainings in English. I had loads of suppliers from all over the world. So my English was luckily good to kind of lend myself into a completely foreign environment. And that was one of the reasons why I wasn't really considered any negatives because I spoke the language. I was like, somehow I will get through it.
Yeah. And
I'll make it work.
Exactly. I met someone in series 1 who talked about making these huge life changes. And she said, if you've got enough of the skills, you've got to back yourself, right? And what's the worst that happens? You go back. You've got enough of the skills to make it work and you've got to back yourself. So you came here, you moved in, and then life began in London after 2009. And what happened after that?
Yeah. Can I just relate back to what you just said in terms of like, the skill set and what you have, and you can go back. I think when we learn a new skill, or when you kind of trust the skills that you have, it's almost like, I think it's just a shift of like understanding. You're not going back in terms of like you regressing. You always pivot so that you can move forward. And I think there has to be a bit of a shift when we talk about careers, or I think that's one of the reasons people are afraid to change, because they think that change is a regression of where they are, but actually it can be just a pivot and move them forward. And it might not be the same direction as they think they want to go, but it is a direction that will take them somewhere different to where they are.
I think it's a really interesting point that you raised there, because in my experience of working in change, so my background is all change transformation in the public sector in government, where I've worked for around 20 years. What I find is the concept of change can feel really scary if people don't know what they're going to and where the change is leading them, or if they've got no control over the change. It's those two bits. And it sounds like in your story, you had a little bit of control because you spoke English and you'd had exposure to a lot of the English language and the training. You'd worked in those huge international companies, and you also had a friend that was familiar and your rock who lived in the UK. So you had enough known about the change to make it feel slightly more comfortable and realistic for you.
100%.
And this is something I talk about a lot with the women that I work with. When times of change happen, how can you identify the small pieces that you can own and find comfort in, rather than everything feeling so overwhelming?
I think that's what I feel so strongly about being empowered from within, because there are certain variables that you will never be able to change, but there are certain variables that you can definitely change or feel more control of. And I think the more you can create that feels in your control, you're less worried about the variables that you are not able to change. Like, for example, so many people are afraid of making small decisions. How can they expect themselves to make big decisions if they can't even make the small ones? So how can you lead yourself into creating that small changes? So when you have to make a bigger decision, it doesn't feel as huge. Like, I've always struggled with money, for example, maybe less nowadays, but when I was growing up around 2009, money was like a huge part of my life, and it was really scary. But I always made sure that what I have, there is a way, to have it, to own it, to spend it, to manage it. So you might not be able to make 1 million from one day to another, but you can certainly look at what you can do with what you have. And that will give you a bigger control, and that will give you the safety net that actually I do have something. I am in control of that something.
I remember a mentor of mine when I was younger, in my 20s, once telling me, always have the equivalent of 2 or 3 months bank salary in your bank account, because it's amazing how empowering that can make you feel. If
100%.
and when really tough things happen in life, you have that buffer to be able to say, actually, I don't want this and I'm going to make a change, and I have enough in the bank account that I am able to do that. And I know not everybody may have that, what feels like a luxury right now, but it is possible to create that space. And maybe that is just the first step for some people, and for some women, is to how can they get that financial buffer in the bank account over the next year, putting away a tiny amount away each month, so that they have that element of control. And that alone sometimes can make us just feel so much more confident that if we lost our job, or our job becomes something we don't want to work in anymore, we have the ability and the power to be able to step away for that. And yes, it will be scary, but at least you've got that financial element there to support you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then take us forward. So 2009, you were here, you made the huge jump to come here. You started over again, which even in itself is massive. And there's something big there about what's the small bits that you can control that give you enough confidence to do that. What happened from then on?
Oh my God. So much. So much. It's so funny because I just landed with like not even knowing that there's the huge companies, exist here as well. Who knew?
Yeah.
So I literally landed myself into hospitality, and I started working there, and I got into a small company where I kind of sharpened my local English.
Yes.
And And that created a bit more boost. I actually made redundant, I think, after the first year
Right.
of working for the company. And that made me really like rethink everything, like rethink what am I going to do, rethink how to manage things forward. And I think that was a bit of a slap
Right.
because until now, or until then, I was able to, manage a lot of things, but that was out of my control. So I really had to
Yes.
dig deep. And luckily, through, like loads and loads of agency emails and job application and all that, because I was like, I can't afford to not have a job, I landed myself a contract job. And then I think that helped me on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
That was
wow.
funny. That was, I
Oh,
think, my first manifestation. If
oh,
I want to go on a bit of a spiritual tangent,
yeah.
because I think that's when I started to believe in a bit more like, the power of your thoughts on hindsight, power of your thoughts,
Right.
power of your beliefs, and the power of your actions. So I got this job on Christmas Eve. And from then onwards, I think I literally just gone up. From then onwards, the way was up. The way was up until I got to a really lovely role at Unilever. I was looking after the Christmas gift range. And I think that was my top. And that's when I started to think about, okay, I might need something else because I just
Right.
didn't feel right. I think I've been in the corporate game for so long and I've seen so much by then. I think I just had enough of that. And I didn't really want to play the game because
Mm.
I've seen it, I've done it. I've climbed my ladder, just let me be. And then I remember I had one of the toughest conversation with a similar age senior. I can't even remember completely, but I needed a bit of support. And then by the time they would have given me the support, it was basically you either go into this 6-month review process, which we all know that it's not really a review process. It's just a process of like you're being basically
Yeah.
removed
Managed.
from the
Yeah.
organization. So you either
Yeah.
go through this 6 months or 3 months process or, there's no other option. And I was like, you know what? I've done this game. Thank you so much. Not with the same, but I went through a lot of structural changes. I went through
Yeah.
manager changes, a lot of things
Mm.
in corporate. And then I said, you know what? I'd rather go. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
quit. And then I started teaching yoga and I started going on this self-development journey that really opened up so much beauty and so much meaning and purpose in my life that I feel proud that I did. And also I feel really humbled that I did it because it really showed me another way of living.
Mm.
That was the same time. So it was a really turbulent time in terms of moving out of corporate, doing yoga and going into self-discovery journey, trying to understand my thoughts, my beliefs, my actions, my everything from pretty much when I was born up until the age of 20, I don't know, 29, 30, 31. Like, that's quite a long time. And that's the time when I met my husband and I felt like he was a gift from the universe. I always say that because, it was such a difficult time for me. I was like, if this guy can handle that, he really deserves to be with me on the other side when I'm actually
Yeah.
coming out of this SHIT storm.
Yeah.
And 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 basically, I think he was the gift from the universe because the universe said, you know what, girl, you suffered enough. You had a difficult childhood. You had an alcoholic dad. You moved countries. You had the guts to
Yeah.
do this, 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 this. And then, you know what? I think you're good. Here you go.
Oh, do you know what? This is just such a beautiful story, and there's
Oh,
so much in it. Firstly, how often I've heard from women that sit doing this about leaving corporate and realizing that there's a moment where it's just not right for them and taking the plunge. Secondly, doing all that self-development and that work, and for different women, it means different things. So Natalie Montagnani, in one of the previous episodes, she had this moment where she was physically reacting. She found out she was suffering from ME. She was really struggling and needed to make a lot of major life choices. And she came across the book, The Secret, and she went to a course that was all around it. And it opened up doors for her and made her start to explore how she was channeling her thoughts and how she was thinking and, being more positive as opposed to some of the negative patterns of language that we can say to ourselves. For someone else I talked to, Alicia Noble, she's talking about Reiki and how she discovered energy flows. And that was groundbreaking for her in terms of managing her own energy and understanding the power that energy healing can have. For you, what was some of the best ways that you found with self-development? You obviously went into yoga and you're teaching yoga now. You've told me you're a huge fan of Brené Brown. Give me an insight into some of the bits that you have found most inspiring for you in terms of self-development.
Oh, first of all, it's such a huge thing. I think everyone should be doing some sort of self-development because we are not born to understand ourselves in that first, 20 years or 25 years of our lives, because there's so much else that we need to understand. And, we're not in the mindset of like you were born and then you learn to walk and learn to speak and learn to be a part of the society. And then all of a sudden you learn to like, oh, what are my thoughts doing? What are my emotions are doing? What are these things? So I think everyone should be doing some sort of self-development. And I think that's why, again, my Be Empowered method is just so down to earth, grounded, because you don't need to do the self-development on a woohoo basis, but you can do understanding the woohoo bit, but also doing your bit. Yes. So as I mentioned, I'll show you as well. As I mentioned, I had my little book pile I pulled out because I thought we're probably gonna talk about it, and I think it's really great. So on my teacher training, my lovely mentor teacher Dylan Ayalu, who's an amazing guy, he made us watch Brené Brown Vulnerability Talk. First of all, that changed a lot of things because I think Brené Brown is just such a common sense, ground to earth person that it's amazing to listen to her. And anyway, so I started reading from her, and I think the two things that really put my thoughts, emotions, actually three things that really put my thoughts and emotions into perspective. One of them is the Brené Brown Rising Strong.
Brilliant.
Because it says, if we are brave enough, often enough, we will fall. But how to come back up is make us who we are. So that really made me realize that actually, you know what, I must be doing something right because I'm in the arena. If you know her work, I'm in the arena and I'm doing the work, and I will get down and I will knock down, but I'm also going to get back up because I've done it many times. So why would I not do it again? Trusting your skill set and mindset and everything. The other thing, and again, it's a really interesting one. I don't even know where I got this book from, but it's from Sarah Waymont, Yoga, PTSD and Me. And she's talking about the difference between PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, and PTG, which is post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
And for years, I was beating myself up for, oh, I'm just a loser. Everything is just so hard for me. Everything is just, life is really working against me. And then I think when I came across with the term of post-traumatic growth, everything changed. And then it just made me realize that, wow, I actually, a person who went through post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Because I could have been, with my alcoholic dad, with my hard childhood, I could have been an alcoholic myself, or living on the street, or end up not appreciating life. But actually, I'm a very happy person. I'm very content where I am. I am proud of what I achieved, and I really feel that I have an amazing gift that I can inspire others. So why not make this into good use? And then we also mentioned Gabby Bernstein, who's talking about, manifestation and how the universe is supporting you. And her work kind of helped me really anchoring down that if you put your mind into something, if you work on that level of yourself, it doesn't have to be like, sorry, I have to lock myself into, be in this woohoo state or be in this meditative state. But, have that sort of connection with yourself, building the connection that that you're not just flesh and bones and the, two-leg walking machine, but actually someone who is feeling emotion, someone who is capable of creating energy around you. So the universe has your back from Gabby was really inspiring. And later in the journey, I think I was in it for about, I don't know, years, like nearly 10 years. And I came across with a book called David R. Hawkins' Letting Go, The Power of Surrender. I have the book, but I didn't bring it, so I can't show you the cover. But it made me realize that actually the past is only present in your life if your emotions are still charged with the past experiences. And then it made me realize that if I disconnect the emotional charge from the past events, it's actually really easy to leave it behind and just move on.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a little puzzle of like,
Yeah.
okay, so I have experiences. Okay, I have thoughts. Okay, I have actions that are driven by those thoughts. And then I have emotions and how to connect it together. And it was
Yeah.
like a little puzzle. And by the time I put it together, it was, oh my God, such a liberation. One of the person I probably ought to mention it, who is so funny. She's Judiciary. She made a money program, how to release your money blocks and all that. And I thought that, oh my God, I don't know what to expect. And when you peel off the layers of like, you might read a book and then you might make a realization and then, okay, I'll put it to bed. And then you read another book, you make a realization and then let it go. And her program at that time for me was something like that. I had a huge release. I had a huge recalibration of how I think about money, how I think about success, how I think about me being successful, given that I had the majority of my life thinking that, oh, I'm just coming from a poor family. I'm never going to be successful, or I'm never going to be able to create anything because I don't have those genes or I don't have those support. And then actually tapping into that power of like, oh no, I do have gifts. I do have skills, I do have ability to make things happen. All this together made me realize that actually I've been always on the right path and actually I am still doing great things with my life. It's just I needed to recalibrate how I think, how I see everything that happened to that point.
Yes. And I love the resources that you've shared. And I think what's beautiful to me is when we each go through these moments and we've all got different challenges and stories, I love seeing the patchwork of approaches and learnings and lessons and things that resonate with each woman, because we've each got a version, but it's made up of different pieces.
Yeah.
So for me, I did a lot with some Deepak Chopra, who talks about the universe and the laws of the universe and how there is pure abundance. And just because one person succeeds doesn't mean there's not the opportunity for me to also succeed. And it really changed my mind opened up a different way of me looking at the concept of loss or envy, because we can be supportive for everybody. He also did a lot of meditations. I think the second thing for me then on that was I saw a Buddhist monk talking once, and he talked about breath work and mindfulness. And I went down a real rabbit
100%.
hole with that helped me. It was an absolute game changer for me with anxiety. And I was chronic insomniac for several years of my life and had really bad panic attacks. And the mindfulness and breathing really got me through that, and exercise. And then I think it's so interesting you talking about that letting go of that disconnection or the charged energy with stories, because I was just listening yesterday to a couple of podcasts on my severely long run yesterday, and they were all about mindfulness, and they were from the point of view of like Buddhism and how Buddhism is the awakening on disattachment from stories that have happened. And it's been something that's really on my mind about that story that happened, and it did happen, but how do I disattach my emotion from that in order to release myself from some of the challenges that brought?
Yes. And it's just reminded me of two things to add. You're right. And I think that's why running is so meditative, isn't it? You have the time to just be with your thoughts. And you're so right in terms of we all have these sort of baggages that we are dealing with. The one thing that, again, I don't know where it came from, but it's just another moment from Dylan. He brought it up that you can't resolve the trauma on the same level as it was happened.
Right.
So meaning, I mean, I went through a really, really dark time when I was 12, 14. It was really severe. And when I had that kind of awakening as well, like, you can't resolve the trauma on the same level that it was created. It made me realize that actually now I can. I couldn't when I was that young, but now I can. And I think that alone gives you the power that you might not be able to resolve things that happened 5 years ago or even a year ago because you were different. But a year from now or 5 years from then, you are a different person with different skill set, with different mindset. There might have things changed on your path. So therefore, you are able to resolve it. That's why I think this going back and living in the past is not very powerful and not very useful because you have the moments that truly made you who you are and you have to appreciate. Like appreciating is probably a better way of saying than grateful because you're appreciating that has a bigger meaning, a bigger charge in terms of taking the positives or taking the learnings with you and appreciating everything that happened in the past. But what are the things or emotions or skill set or mindset that will serve you in the present? And that was really powerful. Another thing from Abraham Hicks, which is quoted so many times, I'm sure, that there's only one stream of well-being. Whether you want it or not, it just flows just as the same. So, it's like whether you are in the flow or out of the flow, it's still flowing.
It's still there.
And if you learn to be in your own flow, then you will feel in flow or in alignment. But if you constantly resist, and that resistance come in like you eating the wrong food, you hanging out with the wrong people, you're doing the wrong job, you're doing all the things that maybe do not align with you. As soon as you change, you feel like, oh, I'm a different person. Yes, because you're like you are in alignment with yourself.
I love that image of the flow is always there. You have to step into it, but it's always there. It's not gone.
It's always there.
It's just you've not quite caught up with it.
Yeah.
So look, Rita, I love this story. And you are someone now that has brought this all into what you're now building, which is all about the Be Empowered method. And tell us just a little bit about what that is and what that looks like and who that appeals to.
So when I came up with this, I was actually coming out on the other side of postnatal depression. And I had this amazing coach who helped me through it. And I loved thinking about creating something. And I've always been teaching yoga, whether I was working full-time or not. At the moment, I'm working full-time as well as teaching yoga. But I always wanted to create something that is not just yoga. It gives a bit more of beyond the physical. And I always wanted to mentor people. So I wanted to create a package that brings together the physical, the mental, and some somatic or way of releasing. And Be Empowered method is basically bringing together my experiences, my knowledge on all three fields, because I'm a yoga teacher, a CrossFit coach. So for me, being physically good and healthy, it's important, but also adding on to the mindset work, the tools that requires us to keep our mind healthy, to keep our thoughts healthy, our connection between brain and heart, the internal landscape healthy, and then adding on to tools that help you create this connection, like for example EFT tapping or a form of EFT tapping, different meditation techniques that doesn't always require you to sit like cross-legged with hands out and meditate for an hour. If you can meditate for an hour, it's great. But let's be honest, if you're a working mom or if you're a busy parent or just a busy individual, you might not have an hour, to meditate or do another workout and do another hour of like looking after yourself in a different ways. So in my method, I want to bring people into a state where they are fully aware of themselves and realizing that actually I need to create my own toolkit so that I can create an application form that I can use on my everyday. So it's a form of self-leadership or leading yourself in a way that works for you, not trying to be the someone who's leading a completely different life. Because when I tried that, it didn't work. And I constantly felt like I'm failing. I constantly felt like, oh my God, I'm not doing something right. And actually, you know what? I have a completely different rhythm of life. So I can't be X, Y, Z when I am Rita and I need to wake up at a certain time. I need to sort out my young kid. I need to go to work and need to do other things. So I had to find ways that actually works for me. And what I'm aspiring to do is to bring women, people to that level of knowing yourself enough so that you understand your physical signs, your mental signs, you understand what works for you. And again, it's not the airy fairy way, but an actual commitment action plan for yourself so that you feel empowered. And then it goes back to the earlier conversation when we talked about, if today I want to drink a cup of coffee instead of a tea, then I go for the coffee and I'm not thinking about it. And it's really interesting because I think there was a podcast where Stephen was talking with a Navy SEAL guy and he was talking about that discipline is liberation. And I didn't have that in my mind for a long time. But actually, the more I'm preaching my own method, the more I feel like actually discipline is liberation because the more you can decide these little tiny decisions, like food-wise, I'm not eating a croissant, but I eat 2 squares of dark chocolate. Or, I'm not going to the gym, but I'm going to go for a walk. Or I'm doing, instead of trying to push myself into 3 sessions a week, how about let's stick to 1 or 2 that I can actually do and then make it as a long-term commitment to myself and my family. And that will lead you to the communication with everyone around you that I'm doing what I set out to do. So if I say to you that let's meet for a coffee at that time, unless I have like a health emergency, I'm going to make sure I turn up. So you also hold yourself accountable and responsible what you do rather than expect everything else to fall into place.
Yeah. And I love that you have brought something from your story and what you found and all that fantastic learning that you've talked about, and you're bringing it now into that discipline and offering it for someone else. Because when we do that, it means that the story and the experiences we've had aren't wasted, and we're bringing that learning to others, which can bring so much joy to other people. And it's exactly what I see in women that I would call unstoppable. So look, to kind of move us into the last few kind of quick fire questions, the first one I want to ask you is, what does being unstoppable mean to you? What is an unstoppable woman?
I absolutely love this because I think an unstoppable woman is someone who is just going for it. Not in a sense of like, let's just ruin everything and just go for it like an elephant in Chinatown, but someone who is empowered from within to complete whatever she wants to do. And I think when I first heard about your movement, it just resonated with me from the point of view that these women are all unstoppable because they went through something that made them the person who they are. And now they are sharing with the world and creating a ripple effect. And I think that's what unstoppable means, to creating a positive ripple effect of people who have something to give and they get it out and they just do it. And it's finding yourself, like finding the courage and the core of yourself that makes you, rather than trying to be this machine that society thinks that you are.
I love that. I love the idea of the ripple effect, because for me, it evokes the idea of we're not just ourselves, but we have an impact on those around us. So having that positive ripple effect by sharing and connecting is just absolutely perfect. And one of the things we do at the end of each episode, there's a question left for the interviewer, the guest from the episode before. And yours has been left for you by Georgie Sperling. And Georgie talked a lot about a company that she has set up, all because of what happened to her when she was at a really young age and she went through heart surgery. And so her question for you is, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what would you say?
I had this question in my mind so many times, because when I look at the mirror and I see myself, how far I've got to, and sometimes I see my tired face, I feel like, oh my God, if I knew everything that I'm going to go through, I would probably be a little bit different back then. So one thing I would say to myself is definitely to worry less, because I tend to overthink. That's something that I'm still working on, but worry less in terms of, I was so young when I started everything, and I was so worried, and I think life forced me to grow up fast. But I would have loved to just leave myself with a bit more nurturing. So definitely worry less and trust that you have the skill set and capability to do whatever you want to do, because look at us.
Yeah,
Look at
exactly. I
us.
love
And
that.
and I think when I was young, I was really thought that it's always the outside that
Yeah.
makes people up. Like I was
Yeah.
reading Cosmopolitan, like thinking that, oh my God, I'm gonna be that woman one day.
Oh my God, you remember all of the young magazines? Like, it's not really a thing for me anymore. I used to read so
I
many
know.
of them.
I know. And then I was collecting it. That, oh my God, this is good. This inspiration. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have that
Yeah.
perfume, that bag, that
Yeah.
outfit, that haircut,
Yeah.
everything. And then I don't even know where I wanted to go with it, but I felt like if I had all of that, I would be perfect. And I
Yeah.
and I think I lost myself a little bit in this being perfect or wanting to be perfect. And I would definitely just encourage my younger self to just live life a bit more to the
Yeah.
fullest.
I love that. I really love that. And look, just to finish us off, what would be your question for the next guest?
My question would be for the next guest, if we sat down with the unstoppable women from a year on for a coffee, what would you tell us about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of, all coming back together, meeting each other properly, having a coffee in a year's time, and, what will have happened in a year. Because it's not that far, but it's also so much can happen in a year, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. We always underestimate how much we can do in a long
100%.
period of time. And we always
Yeah.
overestimate how much we can do in a very
Yeah.
short period of time.
Exactly. I love that. Look, Rita, it has been so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. There's so much here that people will relate to. I just know it. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me and giving this amazing opportunity, and also to bring these stories to life and bring this into under one umbrella and one book. And I cannot wait for this book to come out, to all the stories, and just people listen to it and just realize that how powerful the life that we are living already. I think that always speaks to me that it's not the me too in a negative way, but the me too that, oh my God, we've been through it and we lived it
Yeah.
and we come out of the other side. And if we can do it, or if I can do it, then so can you. And, so other people can do in so many ways, because we just
Yeah.
forget how resourceful we can be. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. Thank you so much.